A woman at my daughter's recital grabbed my husband and yelled, "Our daughter thinks you drowned." The woman's fingernails broke through my husband's shirt collar and I saw blood. She was screaming a name I'd never heard before. Adam. Over and over while parents around us scrambled out of their seats. Cole's face went white. Not confused white, but recognition white. The kind that comes when your worst nightmare walks into an elementary school auditorium and destroys everything. "Our daughter thinks you drowned," the woman sobbed, shaking him so hard his phone clattered to the floor. "Lily has been going to therapy for 6 years because she watched you go under and never come back up." I grabbed the woman's wrist, trying to pull her off my husband, but she wouldn't let go. 2 dads from the row behind us moved in to help while an usher rushed down the aisle. The orchestra had stopped tuning and everyone was staring at us now, phones coming out to record. Cole finally spoke and his voice sounded wrong, distant, like he was talking from underwater. "Veronica, I can explain. Veronica." He knew her name. He knew this woman who was claiming he was someone named Adam, someone who'd apparently drowned, someone who had a daughter who wasn't the 8-year-old girl currently backstage with a violin. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up right there in the 3rd row. "Explain?" Veronica's voice went up an octave. "You faked your death. You let our daughter believe you were dead for 6 years. You let me plan a funeral with an empty casket." The usher and the 2 dads finally pried her hands off Cole, but she kept lunging forward. Security was coming down the aisle now, 2 men in yellow vests moving fast. I looked at my husband, this man I'd been married to for 7 years. This man who'd proposed on a beach in Oregon and cried when Hazel was born and made me breakfast every Sunday morning. "Cole, what is she talking about?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew. Whatever this woman was saying, some part of it was true. The security guards reached us, and one of them asked Veronica to step outside. She was crying hard now, her whole body shaking. "He has to come with me. He has to see Lily. She's been having nightmares about the lake for 6 years. The other guard looked at Cole. "Sir, do you know this woman?" Cole's jaw worked like he was trying to form words but couldn't get them out. Seconds stretched into eternity while everyone waited. Finally, he whispered, "Yes." The auditorium erupted in whispers. I heard someone say they knew something was off about that family. Another parent said they'd call the principal. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. One of the security guards suggested we take this conversation outside before the performance started. I stood up on legs that barely worked and followed as they escorted Cole and Veronica toward the exit. We passed other parents who pulled their children closer like Cole was dangerous now. In the hallway outside the auditorium, Veronica turned on Cole with fury I'd only seen in movies. 6 years, Adam. Lily is 11 now. She was 5 when you supposedly died. Do you know what that does to a child?" Cole or Adam or whoever he was leaned against the wall. I had reasons. I couldn't stay. There were people looking for me. "What people?" Veronica demanded. "The police cleared your death as an accidental drowning. Your brother identified your clothes they found on the shore. We had a memorial service. Your mother died thinking you were dead." Cole's face crumpled at that. "My mother's dead?" His voice broke, and suddenly he looked like someone else entirely. Not the confident software engineer I'd married, but someone broken and lost. Veronica pulled out her phone with shaking hands and showed him a photo. An elderly woman in a hospital bed, gaunt and gray. "She died 2 years ago. Cancer. She kept asking for you in the end." I couldn't process what I was hearing. Cole had told me his parents died when he was in college. A car accident, both of them together. I'd comforted him through anniversaries of their deaths. We'd visited their graves, or what I thought were their graves. The security guard cleared his throat. "Ma'am, do you want to press charges? If this man faked his death, that's fraud. Identity theft at minimum." Cole finally looked at me, and I saw real fear in his eyes. "Natalie, please, I can explain everything. It's not what you think." I heard my own voice come out flat and cold. "What name did we get married under?" He hesitated too long. "Cole Brennan," he said finally. "Is that even your real name?" I asked. Another hesitation. "No." The hallway started spinning. I'd been married for 7 years to someone who wasn't who he said he was. We had a daughter together. We had a mortgage, joint bank accounts, a whole life built on lies. Veronica stepped toward me, and I saw she wasn't angry at me, just desperate. "I'm sorry you're involved in this. I didn't know he'd started another family. I've been looking for him since Lily turned 8 and started asking questions about how her dad died. I needed to understand the scope of this nightmare. How did you find him?" Veronica pulled up something else on her phone. "Lily's in the school orchestra too. Different school, obviously. But I saw the concert announcement shared in a parent group. There was a photo of all the parents at last month's fundraiser. I saw him in the background. I thought I was losing my mind because he was supposed to be dead, but I showed the photo to his brother and he confirmed it was Adam." She turned the phone toward Cole. "David is the one who told me you'd be here tonight. Cole's brother. Another person he'd claimed was dead." The security guard was on his radio now, calling for police. This wasn't just a domestic dispute anymore. This was a crime scene. "We need everyone to stay put until officers arrive," the guard said. I sank onto a bench against the wall. My daughter was backstage right now, probably warming up for her solo, unaware her entire life was imploding in the hallway outside. A teacher poked her head out of the auditorium. "The recital is starting. Is everything okay out here?" Nothing was okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. Cole, Adam, whoever he was, sat down on the bench across from me and put his head in his hands. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could just disappear and start over. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. Veronica laughed bitterly. Your daughter got hurt. Your family got hurt. And now her, she pointed at me. And your other daughter are getting hurt. How did you think this would end? The police arrived 8 minutes later. 2 officers who asked us all to separate. They put Cole in one corner with Officer Ramirez, Veronica in another with Officer Huang. They asked me to wait on the bench while they took preliminary statements. Through the auditorium doors, I could hear the concert starting. The principal's welcome speech, then the first piece. A simple melody I'd heard Hazel practice for weeks. I should have been in there watching her. Instead, I was sitting in a hallway watching my marriage disintegrate. Officer Huang came over after 10 minutes with a notebook. Mrs. Brennan, I need to ask you some questions. How long have you known your husband? 7 years. We met at a coffee shop. He spilled his drink on my laptop. And he's always gone by Cole Brennan? As far as I knew. I pulled out my phone and showed her our marriage license, our mortgage documents, his driver's license photo, and my contacts. She wrote it all down. Did he ever mention having another family? A previous marriage? A child? Never. He'd told me his family was dead and he'd been alone for years before we met. He said I was his second chance at happiness. Officer Huang's expression softened. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. We'll need to verify his identity and determine what charges apply. You might want to call a lawyer. I didn't have a lawyer. Why would I need a lawyer? I was a graphic designer married to a software engineer. We had a kid and a golden retriever and a house with a white picket fence. This wasn't supposed to happen to people like us. Officer Ramirez finished with Cole and walked him toward me. Your husband wants to speak with you. You're not obligated to listen, but he's asking. I stood up because sitting made me feel powerless. Cole stopped a few feet away, hands shaking. Natalie, I know you hate me right now. I deserve that. But I need you to know I never lied about loving you. Everything with us was real. I felt something cold and sharp replace the shock in my chest. Everything was real except your name, and your past, and your dead family who's actually alive, and your other daughter who thinks you're dead. My voice kept rising until I was almost shouting. How is any of that real? Parents leaving the auditorium for intermission stopped to stare at us. Cole lowered his voice. I got involved with people I shouldn't have. Dangerous people who wanted me to do things I couldn't do. The only way out was to disappear. I faked my death because if they knew I was alive, they'd kill me. And they'd kill my family. So you let your family think you were dead instead? I shot back. That was your solution? Traumatize your daughter and your wife and your mother? He flinched at wife like I'd slapped him. Veronica wasn't my wife. We were never married. But yes, she was my partner. Lily is my biological daughter. And I know what I did was unforgivable. The words biological daughter hit different than I expected. Hazel wasn't his only child. She had a half-sister she'd never met who was mourning a father who wasn't actually dead. The complexity of it made my head spin. Officer Huang returned with paperwork. Mr. Brennan, or should I say Mr. Calloway, we've confirmed your real identity through fingerprints. There's an outstanding warrant for fraud related to your faked death and insurance claims. We need to take you into custody. Cole's face drained of color. Insurance claims? I never filed any insurance claims. Veronica stepped forward. Your brother did. He claimed your life insurance policy after you died. $200,000. He split it with me for Lily's college fund. Officer Ramirez pulled out handcuffs. That's fraud if you conspired to fake your death for financial gain. Your brother's already being picked up by officers in Michigan. Cole started backing away. I didn't know about the insurance. David never told me. I've been living under the radar for 6 years. I don't even have a credit card in my real name. The officers moved in quickly, and Cole didn't resist as they cuffed him. He looked at me one more time. Please don't let Hazel see this. Take her home before they walk me out. I rushed back into the auditorium just as Hazel's name was announced for her solo. She walked onto the stage in her black dress and white tights, carrying her violin, completely oblivious to the chaos outside. I stood at the back and watched her play a piece by Vivaldi, her small fingers moving across the strings with precision she'd worked so hard to achieve. She hit every note perfectly, and when she finished, the audience erupted in applause. She smiled and bowed, searching the crowd for us. I waved from the back, but Cole's empty seat in the third row was obvious. Her face fell slightly before she recovered and walked off stage. I met her in the hallway backstage before she could see the police. Sweetheart, we need to go home right now. Dad's not feeling well. Hazel's face scrunched with worry. Is he okay? Did he see me play? I lied smoothly. Something I'd apparently learned from my husband. He saw most of it. You were perfect. We'll talk more in the car. I grabbed her hand and steered her toward the side exit, away from where officers were walking Cole toward their vehicle. We'd almost made it to the parking lot when Veronica called out behind us. Wait, please. I turned around, putting myself between her and Hazel. Veronica's eyes were red and swollen. I just wanted to see her, Adam's other daughter. I'm not trying to cause problems. I just need to know he had something worth leaving us for. I looked down at Hazel, who was confused and scared. Then I looked at Veronica, a woman who'd spent 6 years grieving a man who wasn't dead, raising a daughter who'd been traumatized by a lie. "This isn't the time," I said firmly. "My daughter just performed. She doesn't know anything yet. I need to process this before she does." Veronica nodded and wiped her eyes. "I understand, but eventually the girls should meet. They're sisters." The word sisters hung in the air between us. Hazel tugged my hand. "Mom, what's she talking about?" I guided Hazel toward our car without answering. Once we were inside with the doors locked, she asked again, "Who was that lady? Why did she say we're sisters? Where's Dad?" I gripped the steering wheel and tried to figure out how to explain that everything she knew about her father was a lie. Dad's real name isn't Cole, it's Adam. And before he met me, he had a daughter named Lily with that woman. Lily thinks he died 6 years ago, but he didn't. He's been hiding. Hazel processed this with the brutal honesty of an 8-year-old. So Dad lied about his name, and he has another kid, and he faked being dead? When she said it out loud, it sounded even worse. "Yes," I managed to get the word out. "Why would he do that?" she asked. I had no answer that would make sense to a child. "I don't know, baby. We're going to figure it out together." I drove home on autopilot while Hazel peppered me with questions I couldn't answer. At home, our golden retriever Murphy greeted us at the door, tail wagging, unaware that the man who'd raised him from a puppy was currently sitting in a police station under his real name. Hazel went straight to her room and I heard her crying. I stood in the kitchen staring at the coffee maker Cole had programmed to start automatically every morning at 6:30. My phone buzzed with a text from Officer Huang. They were holding Cole overnight. I'd need to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. There would be investigations into fraud, identity theft, and whether I'd been complicit. Complicit. The word made me want to throw my phone across the room. I'd been a victim, not an accomplice. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. "It's David, Adam's brother. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I need to talk to you about what really happened 6 years ago. The police are saying I was involved in insurance fraud, but Adam never told me he was planning to disappear. I thought he was actually dead." I stared at the message. Another person from Cole's real life emerging from the shadows. How many more were there? How deep did the lies go? I didn't respond to David. Instead, I called my best friend Simone and told her everything in a jumbled rush. She listened without interrupting until I finished. "Oh my God, Natalie. I'm coming over right now." She arrived 20 minutes later with wine and ice cream, the Universal Friendship Emergency Kit. We sat on my couch and she let me cry until I couldn't anymore. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked when I could breathe again. "My husband is in jail. My daughter is traumatized. There's a whole other family out there that I'm apparently connected to now. I don't even know what's real." Simone took my hand. "You need a lawyer, like yesterday, and you need to protect Hazel and yourself. Whatever Cole was involved in 6 years ago, it's coming back now. You need to be ready." The next morning, I called a family law attorney whose name I got from Simone. Margaret Torres listened to my story and said she'd take my case immediately. "This is complicated because you might be married to someone who doesn't legally exist. Cole Brennan's identity is fraudulent, which means your marriage might not be valid. We need to figure out your legal standing before anything else." The thought that my marriage might not even be real hit me harder than I expected. 7 years together, erased because the person I married never existed. Margaret scheduled an appointment for that afternoon and told me to bring every document I had. Marriage license, birth certificates, financial records, everything. I spent the morning gathering paperwork and found things that suddenly looked suspicious. Cole's birth certificate that I'd only seen once, filed away immediately. His college transcripts from a school I'd never actually verified. His social security card that now seemed too new. At the police station, Officer Huang took me to a small interview room and recorded my statement. I explained how we met, how Cole had told me his family died, how he'd never mentioned another identity or previous relationships. She asked detailed questions about his work, his habits, whether he ever left town suddenly or made secret phone calls. "Did he ever receive mail addressed to Adam Calloway?" she asked. I thought back through 7 years of junk mail and bills and Christmas cards. "No, everything came to Cole Brennan." Officer Huang made a note. "He's been very careful then. Most people slip up eventually." She pulled out a file and showed me Cole's real driver's license from 6 years ago. Adam Joseph Calloway, born in Michigan, 39 years old. The photo looked like Cole but younger, with shorter hair and no glasses. "Your husband faked his death by leaving clothes and his wallet on a beach in northern Michigan. He called 911 from a payphone reporting seeing someone go under the water. By the time responders arrived, he was gone." "Why would he do that?" I asked. Officer Huang flipped through more papers. "We're still investigating, but it appears he was involved with a gambling ring that was under federal investigation. He owed significant money to people connected to organized crime. Faking his death was apparently his way out. Gambling. Cole had never gambled in the 7 years I'd known him. He didn't even buy lottery tickets. Another piece of him I didn't know." "What happens now?" I asked. Officer Huang closed the file. "He'll be arraigned on fraud charges. The FBI is involved now because of the interstate crime implications. His brother David is claiming he didn't know Adam was alive, that he believed the death was real when he claimed the insurance money. We're investigating that too. I left the police station feeling hollowed out. Margaret Torres was waiting at a coffee shop near her office. We spread out all my documents and she examined each one carefully. Your marriage license is filed under Cole Brennan, which is a false identity, she explained. In most states, a marriage requires accurate identification. This creates a legal gray area. You might be considered common law married to Adam Calloway, or you might not be married at all. The words not married at all echoed in my head. What about Hazel? I asked. Is she still his legal daughter? Margaret pulled out a notepad. Hazel's birth certificate lists Cole Brennan as the father. We'll need to establish paternity under his real name. The good news is biological paternity can't be erased by a fake identity. He's still her father legally, just under a different name. That evening I had to explain more to Hazel. She sat on her bed hugging a stuffed elephant while I tried to make sense of the senseless. Dad made some mistakes a long time ago. He owed money to bad people and he got scared, so he pretended to die and became someone new. Hazel's eyes were wide. Like witness protection? I'd actually wondered the same thing. No, not like witness protection. The police didn't help him. He did it on his own, which was wrong. She picked at the elephant's ear. Does this mean we have to change our names too? The question broke my heart. No, baby. You're still Hazel Brennan. I'm still Natalie Brennan. Dad is the only one who wasn't who he said he was. The arraignment was scheduled for 3 days later. Margaret said I didn't have to attend, but I needed to see it. Simone came with me for moral support. The courtroom was small and cold. Cole was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking exhausted and defeated. He scanned the gallery and his eyes locked on mine. I looked away. The judge read the charges. Fraud, identity theft, filing false reports, insurance fraud conspiracy. Cole's public defender argued for bail, citing his stable employment and family ties. The prosecutor countered that he was a flight risk who'd already faked his death once. The judge set bail at $100,000. Cole's face fell. He didn't have that kind of money, or at least the person I knew as Cole didn't. I had no idea what resources Adam Calloway might have hidden away. As they led him back out, he called my name. Natalie, please, I need to talk to you. I stood up and walked out without responding. In the hallway, Veronica was waiting with a girl who had to be Lily. She was 11 with auburn hair like her mother and Cole's green eyes. She stared at me with undisguised curiosity. Veronica approached carefully. I know this is awkward, but Lily wanted to see where her dad was. She doesn't believe he's really alive until she sees him herself. I understood that completely. Sometimes you need to see the impossible to believe it. The arraignment just finished. They took him back to holding. Lily stepped forward, small for 11, and carrying herself like someone who'd experienced too much loss too young. Are you his new wife? She asked. Her directness reminded me of Hazel. I thought I was, I said honestly. Now I'm not sure what I am. Lily nodded like that made sense. My therapist says he might have a disorder that made him run away from reality. She says it's not my fault. The fact that this child had been in therapy for 6 years because of Cole's choices made anger rise sharp in my throat. It's not your fault at all. Your dad made choices that hurt a lot of people, but especially you. Veronica put her arm around Lily. We're going to request visitation once this is sorted out legally. Lily deserves to see her father. I thought about Hazel at home, confused and hurt, wondering if her dad would disappear again. So does my daughter, I said quietly. David finally called me directly that evening. His voice sounded like Cole's, but rougher, older. I'm Adam's older brother. I swear I didn't know he was alive. When they found his clothes on the beach and he'd called in a drowning, I thought he was gone. I mourned him for 6 years. I sat at my kitchen table staring at a photo of Cole from our wedding day, his smile so genuine I'd never questioned it was built on lies. Why did you file the insurance claim? I asked. David sighed heavily. Because Veronica needed help raising Lily alone. My brother left them with nothing. The insurance money was supposed to be for his daughter's future. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong because I genuinely believed he was dead. His explanation sounded reasonable, which made me angry because nothing about this situation should sound reasonable. The police say Cole was involved with organized crime, gambling debts. Did you know about that? I knew Adam had problems, David admitted. He'd always been drawn to risky situations. Cards, sports betting, stupid investments. It got worse after Lily was born. He felt trapped by responsibility and started making bad decisions trying to get rich quick. But I never thought he'd fake his own death. That's insane. Insane was the right word for all of this. He built an entire life with me under a fake name. We have a daughter together. How does someone do that? David was quiet for a moment. My brother was always good at compartmentalizing. Even as kids, he could lie smoothly about things that didn't matter and seem completely genuine. I think he convinced himself Cole Brennan was real and Adam Calloway was the lie. After we hung up, I looked through old photos on my phone. 7 years of memories. Our first date, the proposal, our wedding, Hazel's birth, birthday parties, holidays, ordinary moments. In every photo, Cole looked happy and present. Had any of it been real? Or was I just another mark in his long con? Margaret called the next morning with an update. I've been researching similar cases. There's precedent for annulling marriages based on fraudulent identity, but it's complicated when children are involved. We might need to pursue a legal name change for Cole to Adam, acknowledge the marriage under his real name, then file for divorce under proper documentation. The legal gymnastics made my head hurt. How long will this take? I asked. Months, possibly over a year, depending on how complicated the criminal case gets, Margaret said. In the meantime, you need to protect your finances. Freeze joint accounts. Document everything. Prepare for the possibility he might owe significant debts from his past life. I spent that afternoon at the bank separating our finances. The accounts manager looked sympathetic as I explained my husband wasn't who he claimed to be. She helped me open new accounts in my name only and freeze the joint accounts pending legal resolution. When I got home, there was a car I didn't recognize in my driveway. A man in his 60s got out as I pulled up. He had Cole's jawline and eyes, just weathered by decades more of life. Mrs. Brennan? I'm Roger Calloway, Adam's father. I stood frozen by my car door. Cole had told me his father died in the car accident with his mother, but here he was, very much alive, looking nervous and sad. I know my son told you I was dead, Roger said carefully. That's what he told everyone. But I'm here now because I need to see my granddaughter. Granddaughter singular. He meant Lily, not Hazel. The realization hit me that Cole had been lying about me and Hazel to his family the same way he'd lied to me about them. You don't know about Hazel, I said slowly. Roger's confusion was obvious. Who's Hazel? I invited him inside because this conversation couldn't happen in the driveway where neighbors were already too interested in my family drama. Roger sat on my couch staring at the photos on my walls. Cole and me on our honeymoon. Hazel's school pictures. Murphy sleeping on Cole's lap. Adam has another daughter. Roger said it like he was testing the words. You have another granddaughter, I confirmed. Hazel is 8. She plays violin. She thinks her grandfather died before she was born because that's what her father told her. Roger's hands shook as he picked up a photo of Hazel from the side table. She has the Calloway nose, same as Adam and David had as kids. He set the photo down carefully. I need to explain something about my son. Adam has always struggled with reality. Not in a clinical way that we could diagnose, but in a way where he'd create elaborate stories and start believing them himself. When he was 16, he convinced an entire summer camp he was the son of a diplomat and had lived in 6 countries. He'd created detailed stories about places he'd never been. I sat across from Roger trying to reconcile this description with the man I'd married. Are you saying he's delusional? Roger shook his head. Not delusional exactly. More like he has the ability to step into a role so completely he loses track of who he actually is. His therapist called it maladaptive daydreaming with dissociative features. Adam would escape from life stress by becoming someone else entirely. The psychological explanation should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It meant Cole, the man I loved, might not have been an act. He might have genuinely believed he was Cole Brennan, at least partially. Did you know about the gambling? I asked. Roger's face darkened. I found out after he supposedly died. His bookie called me looking for payment. That's when I learned Adam owed $180,000 to people who don't accept late payments. I thought they'd killed him and staged it to look like an accident. The amount made me dizzy. $180,000 in gambling debts. No wonder he'd run. So you knew he was in danger? Roger nodded. I tried to help him. I offered to refinance my house to pay off half if he'd get help for the gambling addiction. He refused. Said he had a plan to win it back. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Or so we thought. Hazel appeared in the doorway, home early from school because I'd forgotten it was early dismissal Wednesday. She stared at Roger with curiosity. Who are you? Roger stood up slowly, tears forming in his eyes. I'm your grandfather, sweetheart. Your dad's father. Hazel looked at me for confirmation. I nodded reluctantly. She walked closer to Roger, studying his face. Dad said you died in a car crash with Grandma. Roger knelt down to her level. Your grandma did die, but that was 3 years ago from cancer. Your dad told a story that wasn't true because he was trying to protect himself. Hazel processed this with the same brutal logic she'd applied to everything else. So Dad's a liar who fakes people dying, when an 8-year-old could sum up the situation that clearly there was no defending it. Roger stayed for dinner because I didn't have the energy to kick out an old man who was meeting his granddaughter for the first time. He told Hazel stories about Cole as a child, the real stories, not the fictional version Cole had created. Hazel listened intently, collecting pieces of her father's real identity. After Roger left, promising to visit again soon, Hazel asked me the question I'd been dreading. Are we going to see Dad? I'd been avoiding thinking about visitation. Cole was still in jail, unable to make bail. Eventually, he'd either bond out or be sentenced, and then we'd have to decide if Hazel should see him. Do you want to see him? I asked. Hazel thought about it seriously. I'm mad at him, but he's still my dad, even if his name is Adam now. Children's capacity for forgiveness amazed me. I was nowhere near ready to forgive, but Hazel was already trying to figure out how to maintain a relationship with her father, despite everything. Margaret called that evening with news. The prosecutor is offering a plea deal. If Adam, pleads guilty to fraud charges and agrees to pay restitution, they'll recommend 3 years in prison with possibility of parole after 18 months. He's considering it. Prison. My daughter's father in prison. The reality of it settled heavy on my chest. What happens to us if he takes the deal? I asked. Margaret explained the financial implications. We'd need to prove I had no knowledge of his real identity or his crimes. My assets would be protected, but anything in his name could be seized for restitution. The house was in both names, which created complications. The next week moved in a blur of meetings with lawyers, accountants, and social workers assigned to evaluate Hazel's well-being. Everyone wanted to know the same things. What did you know, and when did you know it? I told the same story over and over. I didn't know anything. I was married to a man who didn't exist. Cole, Adam, whoever he was, took the plea deal. His sentencing hearing was scheduled for the following month. Margaret said I should attend to show the judge I was a victim too, that I was cooperating fully with authorities. The day before the sentencing, Veronica called me. We'd exchanged numbers for coordinating the inevitable meeting between Lily and Hazel. I want to bring Lily to the hearing tomorrow, she said. She needs to see her father face consequences. Her therapist thinks it will help with closure. I understood the logic, but the thought of both girls seeing their father sentenced to prison made me nauseous. The hearing was in a larger courtroom than the arraignment. Veronica sat on one side with Lily and her therapist. I sat on the other with Hazel, Simone, and Roger. David was there too, recently cleared of conspiracy charges after proving he genuinely believed his brother was dead. When they brought Adam in, both girls audibly gasped. Lily because she was seeing her dead father alive for the first time in 6 years. Hazel because her father looked so different in prison clothes, thinner and grayer. Adam's eyes found his daughter's immediately. The pain on his face looked genuine, but I didn't trust my ability to read him anymore. The judge was a stern woman in her 50s who'd clearly read every detail of the case. She asked Adam if he understood he was giving up his right to trial by pleading guilty. He said yes in a voice barely above a whisper. Then she asked if he wanted to make a statement before sentencing. Adam stood, his public defender beside him. Your Honor, I know nothing I say can make this right. I made choices 6 years ago that destroyed my family. Then I made worse choices by building a new life on lies. I told myself I was protecting people, but I was really just running away from consequences. He turned to look at Veronica and Lily. I'm sorry I let you think I was dead. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your childhood, Lily. You deserved a father who stayed and faced his problems. Then he looked at me and Hazel. And I'm sorry I built our life on a foundation of lies. You deserved honesty from the beginning. Hazel, you deserve to know your real family. I stole that from you. The judge listened without expression. Then she delivered the sentence. 4 years in federal prison, 3 years supervised probation after release, $200,000 in restitution to be paid to the insurance company, mandatory gambling addiction treatment, and supervised visitation only with both daughters after release. Adam's shoulders dropped as they led him away. Lily was crying silently, her therapist's arm around her shoulders. Hazel sat stone-faced beside me. In the hallway afterward, we couldn't avoid each other anymore. Veronica walked over with Lily. Maybe the girls should meet properly, she said. They're going to be in each other's lives now whether we like it or not. I looked down at Hazel, who was staring at Lily with open curiosity. Do you want to talk to your sister? I asked. Hazel nodded. The two girls stood facing each other, two people who shared half their DNA and a father who'd betrayed them both completely. I'm sorry he left you, Hazel said finally. I'm sorry he lied to you, Lily replied. Then, in the way children somehow manage to cut through adult complexity, they hugged. Veronica and I watched awkwardly, two women connected by the same man's lies, trying to figure out how to coexist in this strange new reality. Over the next few months, we developed an unexpected system. Lily and Hazel started having supervised visits at a family therapy center. A child psychologist helped them process their complicated sibling relationship. They discovered they both played violin, both loved dogs, both had anxiety about their father that manifested in nightmares. Veronica and I became cordial, then almost friendly. We compared notes on Adam's lies and found comfort in knowing neither of us had been particularly stupid. He was just particularly good at deception. Roger became a fixture in both girls' lives, the one constant grandfather who showed up for recitals and school events. David sent gifts on holidays, trying to make up for years of absence from Hazel's life. 6 months into Adam's sentence, the prison approved supervised visitation for family members. Neither girl was sure they wanted to see him. Their therapist suggested waiting until they were ready rather than forcing it. Hazel decided to go first, saying she needed answers that only her father could give. I drove her to the prison on a Saturday morning, both of us quiet during the 2-hour drive. The visitation room was beige and depressing, smelling like industrial cleaner and defeat. Adam was brought in wearing prison blues, and he looked smaller somehow, diminished. He sat across from Hazel at a small table while I watched from chairs along the wall. Hi, sweetheart, he said, and his voice cracked. Hazel stared at him. Are you Dad or are you Adam? The question was more profound than she probably realized. Adam thought about it carefully. I think I'm both. Cole was who I wanted to be. Adam is who I actually am. Does that make sense? Hazel shook her head. Not really. They talked for 30 minutes about school and violin and Murphy the dog, surface topics that avoided the real questions. Then, as our time was ending, Hazel asked what she'd really come to know. Did you ever actually love us? Or were we just part of your fake life? Adam's eyes filled with tears. I love you more than anything. That was never fake. You and your mom were the best parts of who I became as Cole. I just wish Cole could have been real. It wasn't enough of an answer, but it was something. As we drove home, Hazel was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I think I understand a little bit. Dad got so lost in his lies that he didn't know how to get back to the truth. She was wiser at 8 than I'd been at 30. 2 weeks later, Lily decided she was ready. Veronica texted me updates from the visit. Lily had yelled at Adam for abandoning her. She'd cried about all the years he'd missed. He'd apologized and explained about the gambling debts and the fear. They'd ended the visit with Lily saying she wasn't sure she could forgive him, but she was willing to try. Margaret finally sorted out the legal mess of my marriage a year after Adam's sentencing. The court annulled my marriage to Cole Brennan on the grounds of fraud, then retroactively recognized my common-law marriage to Adam Calloway based on our years of cohabitation and shared child. Then we filed for divorce under Adam's real name. It was bureaucratic gymnastics that resulted in me being legally divorced from someone I'd thought I was married to, but technically wasn't. The house had to be sold to pay restitution. Hazel and I moved into a smaller apartment across town, starting over. She decorated her new room with photos of both families, pictures of Lily, of Roger, of David's kids who were her cousins she'd never met. She created a family tree that was messy and complicated and entirely honest. Murphy adapted to the apartment, though he kept looking for Adam during the first few months. Veronica and I coordinated holiday schedules for the girls, making sure they had time together. They weren't close exactly, but they were building something, a relationship defined by shared trauma and gradual healing. Adam was released after serving 2.5 years. His supervised visitation with the girls happened once a month at the therapy center. Hazel went sometimes, declining other times based on her emotional state. Lily was more consistent, desperate to rebuild something with the father she'd lost twice. 3 years after that night at the school recital, I ran into Adam at Hazel's middle school orchestra concert. He was allowed to attend public events now that his probation restrictions had eased. We stood in the back of the auditorium together, watching our daughter play the same violin she'd held that night when everything exploded. She's gotten so good, Adam said quietly. I nodded. She practiced constantly, music becoming her refuge the way lies had been his. When the concert ended, Lily appeared, having come to support her sister. The two girls hugged and compared notes on their performances. Lily played cello now, creating harmony to Hazel's melody. Adam watched them with visible pain, seeing what he'd almost destroyed. Thank you, he said to me, for not turning them against me. You could have. I'd thought about it, especially in those early angry months. But I'd realized pretty quickly that children needed to form their own relationships with their parents, even flawed ones. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I did it for them. He nodded, understanding that was as close to forgiveness as he'd ever get from me. We'd never be friends. I'd never fully trust him. But we'd learn to coexist in the complicated ecosystem we'd all been forced into. Roger hosted Thanksgiving that year at his house, inviting everyone, both daughters, both mothers, David's family, even Adam on supervised release. It was awkward and strange. 20 people connected by one man's lies trying to build something honest. But Hazel and Lily sat together laughing about something on their phones, and in that moment, I saw that despite everything, something good had survived the wreckage. On the drive home, Hazel asked me if I'd ever date again. I'd been so focused on survival and single parenting that I hadn't thought about it. Maybe someday, I said. Would it be weird for you if I did? She considered it seriously. Probably a little, but you deserve someone who's actually who they say they are. She was right. I deserved honesty and stability and boring normalcy. Eventually, I'd be ready for that. But for now, I was focused on rebuilding. My career, my home, my sense of trust. 5 years after that night, I was at another school recital, this time Hazel's high school graduation performance. She'd been accepted to a prestigious music conservatory, pursuing the passion that had been her constant through chaos. Lily was there too, graduated a year earlier and home from college. They sat together in the audience waiting for Hazel's final solo. Adam had been released from all supervision by then. He'd completed his treatment, paid his restitution, and was working a normal job under his real name. He'd never gamble again, he claimed, the threat of prison having finally taught him consequences. I didn't know if I believed him, but it wasn't my problem anymore. Veronica had started dating someone new, a steady accountant who thought her complicated past made her more interesting rather than damaged. Roger's health was declining, but he'd lived to see both granddaughters graduate, a goal he'd set after meeting Hazel that first afternoon. When Hazel walked onto the stage for her final high school performance, she played a piece she'd composed herself. It was called Two Names, a complex melody that wove together contrasting themes, discord becoming harmony. She'd explained it was about her father's dual identity and how she'd learned to hold both truths simultaneously. He was Cole who loved her, and he was Adam who'd lied to her, and somehow both could be real. The audience didn't know the piece's history, but I did. So did Veronica and Lily and Adam. We all watched her transform pain into art, lies into music, chaos into something beautiful and true. After the performance, we all went to dinner at an Italian restaurant, the extended, complicated family we'd become. Adam sat at one end of the table next to Lily. I sat at the other end next to Hazel. Roger was in the middle, holding the family together through sheer stubborn persistence. Hazel proposed a toast, raising her water glass. To families that are messier than we planned but somehow work anyway. Everyone drank to that, even me. Because she was right. We were messy and complicated and built on a foundation that had crumbled and been rebuilt with honesty instead of lies. It would never be perfect. Adam would always be the person who'd faked his death and built a new life on deception. But he was also the person who'd loved his daughters genuinely, even when everything else was fake. Those contradictions didn't cancel each other out. They just existed together, uncomfortable and true. As I drove Hazel home that night, she asked if I was happy. I thought about it carefully. I'm not angry anymore. That's different than happy, but it's something. She nodded, understanding the distinction. Do you think Dad's happy? I glanced at her. Why does it matter? She shrugged. I guess I want to know if people can actually change, or if they just get better at hiding who they really are. The question haunted me because I didn't have a good answer. Had Adam changed, or had he just run out of places to hide? I wanted to believe people could genuinely transform, that consequences could teach lessons, that love could be real, even when built on lies. But I'd also learned that trust, once broken that completely, never fully repairs. You just learn to function with the cracks. Years later, when Hazel brought home her first serious boyfriend, she made him meet the entire family. Me, Adam, Veronica, Lily, Roger, David, all of us. She said she wanted him to understand where she came from, the messy, complicated truth of it. The boyfriend handled it remarkably well, asking questions and not judging the chaos. After he left, Hazel explained her strategy. If he can handle meeting Dad and understanding everything that happened and still want to be with me, then he's someone who sees reality clearly. I need that after growing up in lies. She'd learned the lesson her father never did. Truth, no matter how complicated, was always better than comfortable fiction. I was proud of her for that wisdom, earned through trauma but transformed into strength. The woman who grabbed my husband at a school recital 7 years ago destroyed my life that night, but she also gave me the truth. And truth, no matter how painful, was ultimately the kindest gift. Because you can't heal from lies. You can only heal from honestly understanding what broke you in the first place. And in understanding how my marriage was built on deception, I learned to build everything else on truth. My relationship with my daughter, my friendships, my sense of self, my standards for the future. I never remarried. Eventually I dated, had relationships, but I was careful in ways I'd never been before. I asked questions, I verified stories, I trusted slowly. Some men found that exhausting. The right ones understood why it was necessary. Hazel thrived at conservatory, her music becoming more complex and beautiful as she processed her history. Lily became a therapist, specifically working with children of parents who'd abandoned them. They turned their trauma into purpose. Adam stayed clean, attended his daughter's milestones, and lived a smaller, quieter life than Cole Brennan ever had. Sometimes I wondered if he missed being Cole, if Adam felt like a downgrade after years of being someone more confident and successful. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I'd moved on to a life that was entirely my own, built on my choices, my truth, my carefully reconstructed trust. The school recital happened every spring, and every year I attended to watch new young musicians perform. Sometimes I saw families that looked perfect, and wondered if they were, or if they were hiding their own complications behind smiles and coordinated outfits. Most likely the latter, I'd learned. Everyone had secrets. The question was whether those secrets were protective or destructive, whether they brought people together or tore them apart. Mine had been revealed in the most public, humiliating way possible. But at least now I knew the truth. And truth, uncomfortable and complicated as it was, had set me free. Not free from the consequences. Those would last forever. But free from living in a fiction someone else had constructed. Free to build reality on my own terms. That freedom was worth everything I'd lost. Even the comfortable life I'd thought was real.